Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Although I know it is happy Thursday for some of you. So good morning, good evening, or good night, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining in. I am doing a series this month called Unlocking the Secrets of Career Success. And tonight I'm talking about recognizing the difference between stress and anxiety. If this is your first time meeting me, I'm Dr. Twanna, and as a career coach, I work with stressed, busy women executives who are plagued by imposter syndrome, self criticism, and doubt. I help them to alleviate their stress so that they can find peace of mind and fully focus on excelling in their careers. If you are just joining us again tonight, I'm talking about unlocking the secrets of success, recognizing the difference between stress and anxiety. Now, I know that many of us kind of use them interchangeably. They're not really. And we're going to talk about that tonight. So I love questions. I love comments. So feel free to drop your questions. If you know you already came with some questions tonight, go ahead and start dropping those in. I'd love to hear those. Or as we go along, I do stop to read the comments. So those of you who are on Facebook, welcome. Those of you who are viewing this on YouTube, welcome. Subscribe while you're there. Right? And those of you who are seeing this on LinkedIn, you too are welcome, as well as those of you who view this on Twitter. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And those of you who actually take the time out to view this on replay, you're welcome. Everybody, when you hop on live, just drop live in the comments for me so I know that you dropped in live. And for those of you who have viewed on the replay, drop replay, I always circle back and read all of my comments. So again, if you're just joining me, we are talking about unlocking the secrets to career success, recognizing the difference between stress and anxiety. And yes, we're going to be talking about the angry Black woman, figuring out what is up with that, what's really going on, right? So let's talk a few statistics here. I like to give out statistics, okay? 1 out of every 2 Black women suffers from some type of heart disease, most of it caused by stress. Yes, related. It is related to stress. 1 out of 2 Black women. That's 50% of Black women. We have some type of heart disease that's related to stress. So we're definitely going to talk about stress tonight. Okay. And did you also know that the life expectancy of Black women is 3 years less than white women? Also related to stress. Some sobering statistics, right? And as a result of stress, Black women's bodies age at an increased rate compared to others. Thank God the melanin be popping, because the face, we don't see it, right? The skin, it doesn't see that. And that is a good thing, considering that our bodies do age at an increased rate over other folks because of stress. Okay. And so let's talk about stress. But let me see if you're on. Tell me what your definition of stress is, right? We hear it stress, stress, stress. And actually, stress is shortened to stress. The word originally was distress. Families that are in distress, people that are in distress. And then it was shortened to stress. And that's what most of us call it. And there's also eustress. You don't hear many people use the term eustress, but that's a good kind of stress, right? It's the good kind, right? It kind of make you study a little harder, run a little faster, depending on what you're doing. That's a good kind of stress. Okay. So yes, let's go on. So stress is a response actually to what is going on in your environment, right? That's all stress is. Are you getting ready for a briefing or a presentation? That can cause stress. You're studying for medical boards, that can cause stress. Okay. Are you prepping for a certification exam? Yep, that's a stress. It's an event or a situation that can cause stress. If you get a phone call that says your daughter or your son is ill, that can amp up your stress as well until you get to them and do the check-in. Are you okay? What's going on? But in the meantime, that amps up your stress, right? Packing or leaving for a vacation, that causes stress. And so does coming back, although maybe for a different reason. but that can cause stress, right? Let's say you fall and sprain your ankle. That could be a stressful. That's an event that causes stress. Or if your team is going to the tournament, a tournament is coming up, all of those things can cause stress, right? Events or situations. So in other words, you're reacting to an event in your environment or a situation in your environment. And those things, it's a stress response, right? And so we have two types of stress. There's an acute stress, something that happens for a fairly short period of time, right? And actually, it can be good. Again, studying for a certification, running a little faster, getting more practice in. If you're on a, if you're competing on an intramural team, you want to be sure if you guys made it to the tournament. You want to be sure that you pull, your fair share. So that's good. You're getting in the extra practice. If you're doing a briefing, you're making sure that I know what I know. I know my facts. I know my figures and all those kinds of things, right? So that's, again, the eustress before on a short amount of time, it can actually be good. There's a lot of research about stress that oftentimes it depends on how you look at it, right? Some people look at giving a briefing as a kiss of death. Life is going to end if I have to do this briefing. But for other folks, it's a time to challenge themselves and to do well. So it really does depend on how you look at stress. But these are short. These are acute stress events, right? Then there's some of the symptoms of acute stress can be heart palpitations, shortness of breath, you feel kind of lightheaded. It could be headaches, it could be stomach pain or indigestion, could be some sweating or some chest pain, depending on what type of stress it is. Because yes, I've seen people get married and they have heart palpitations, they have a shortness of breath. You've seen the dudes at the altar pass out. That is acute stress, okay? And you've seen those symptoms where, he's sweating profusely and all of a sudden over he goes because he passes out from acute stress. I think we all have seen that before, right? Anybody out there seen the guy fall over at the wedding when, he's at the altar and she's coming down the aisle, or he's just waiting, he just falls over. It's funny looking at it, but not for the poor guy that's standing at the altar that, he just passed out and his soon-to-be wife is looking like, oh my God, he passed out. So absolutely acute stress. Now, chronic stress is stress that happens over a period of time, from months to years, okay? And some things that can cause chronic stress: being the only Black woman in the C-suite for months, years on end, or each time you go to another job, you're still the only one Black woman sitting in that room there and feeling totally isolated and alone many times, right? Some other things that can cause chronic stress are illnesses, long-term illnesses. Definitely can cause stress, and over the long term, not only can it cause stress, but can also cause depression if it's a lot of pain involved, right? Being in a toxic workspace can cause chronic stress, especially if you're there, and we'll talk about reason why people kind of stay in those positions, but it can cause chronic stress, right? Being in a bad relationship, a toxic relationship, also one of the things that can cause chronic stress. Financial strain, not having enough funds, your money doesn't make it to the end of the month, it falls short. Over months and months, that financial strain can really cause chronic stress to build up. Some of the symptoms of chronic stress could just, isolating yourself or feeling, emotionally that you just need to withdraw from your friends or from your family or from the normal activities that you would normally do. Also, low energy. It's just that when that chronic stress lasts and lasts, your energy is very low because, it's going in the worry part of that, right? Also, aches and pains. You can get joint pains, ache pains, and I know some of you probably know folks that have been stressed over a while. Their body aches. The body is releasing all this cortisol, and it goes in, and it has nothing to do because you're not really stressed to fight or flight or do anything. So it attacks the body, right? And this is why over time, chronic stress leads to those autoimmune diseases, diabetes. We talked about hypertension, right? Heart disease, things like that, fibromyalgia, lupus. Those are, diseases that relate directly to chronic stress, right? Also, people can have difficulty focusing when there's chronic stress. Yeah, yeah. Anybody out there have experienced any of these? Drop them in the comments to let me know, right? Also, if there's chronic stress that goes on, there are changes in the appetite. Some people eat like nobody's business. All the carbs you just eat. Others may not eat as much. It just depends on who you are. But those are all symptoms caused by chronic stress, right? So we talked about stress being a response to something that's going on in your environment, whether it's something great like getting married, going on vacation, the first day of school, getting your degree finished, having a baby. Those things are all stress. They can all cause stress. It's an event on occurrence, and you can have stress around it, right? Some people's like, I can't wait till the baby gets here. And then when the baby gets there, it's a whole nother type of stress that's involved with that. And so what about anxiety? We heard what stress is. So what about anxiety, right? And if you followed me for a while, you know that I have social anxiety, okay? And I go through some things before I get situated here to go live. Of course, the more you do it, the better it gets, but it still doesn't stop me from getting nervous. And so obviously there are ways you can manage the anxiety. And that's what I do. And in my anxiety coaching, that is what I do. No one cures anxiety. Okay. And we're going to talk about why you don't cure anxiety. All right. How anxiety is the body's response to being in danger. And I love to put it like this when I talk with my clients, coach my clients, is your body feels unsafe. So it doesn't need to, like, you can see a snake. If you're afraid of snakes, that is unsafe, right? But it's also can be a feeling, I don't feel safe. You can't put your finger on it, but you don't, that my body doesn't feel safe. That can cause anxiety. Okay. Many folks who have anxiety said they feel like this impending sense of doom. Nothing you can put your finger on sometimes. You just feel like it's coming. The other shoe is going to drop, is how people also put it. I just know at some point I feel like the other shoe is going to drop. So when the body responds to being in danger or feeling threatened, right, or feeling something is going to happen, then there's an anxiety response. And most of us are familiar with fight or flight. The body reacts by fighting. It gives you all these energies, your circulation, your heart rate, your eyes dilate. This body goes through a process to get you ready to fight, right? Stand and fight to live, to survive. That's the goal of anxiety. It's either going to have you stand and fight, which most of us are familiar with. We're also tend to be familiar with the flight, the runaway. In other words, your body gets you all revved up and it gives you energy so you can run to get to safety. But there are actually 5 responses that you can do in response to anxiety. Okay, we talked about flight, we talked about fight. Some people faint, right? Some people are so anxious. They're anxious about speaking in front of people and they just faint right there, right? So if you remember, you see this a lot in nature. The animals that run, we call it the deer caught in headlights. The animals that face the danger and they just literally stop and they pass out. They hit the ground. All right. We call freeze. That's a freeze response as well, right? That's the 4th one. That freeze is when that's the deer caught in headlights, because the deer sees the headlights and they just freeze right there. Right. So the faint response is, the ones that fall over and it's like a play dead type of thing. They faint because they can sometimes live to fight another day. Right. So in human beings, though, we say freeze. We all know what faint is because you've seen people faint. But that freeze response can be different for different people. And so I have social anxiety. And so as my younger self, I had a lot of freeze moments. And it was humiliating because I'd be asked a question in the classroom and it was like my throat clogged up and I couldn't speak. That's a freeze response to anxiety. You know the answer, and someone asks you, and your mind just goes blank, and you're looking, and you cannot marshal thoughts, you can't focus, you can't do anything but just stare. That's a freeze response to anxiety. And so it also looks like folks that know they're in a toxic relationship and they just stay there for years. It's a freeze. Do I go? Do I stay? And they can't make a decision to leave, so they just sit in that toxic relationship, or they sit in a toxic job. That's a freeze anxiety response to what's going on with you, right? Your body says, yes, we're not safe, and you freeze. And some people, I have folks that come to me for coaching and they freeze. They've been in a toxic work environment for 5, 10, 15 years because they freeze and they can't make a decision, seem to get it right to move out. And so I love doing anxiety coaching because I understand what that's like when your body's not responding how you like it to. Now I could get home and walk away, and all these things are pop in my head that I could have shared, woulda, coulda, shoulda, and then I would go home and cry because I didn't say any of it, because I would freeze and I couldn't just think, right? And so the last one, the last reaction to, we talked about fight, flight, faint, freeze, is fawn, right? Fawn looks like people pleasing. Even though someone's in the wrong, you're still people pleasing. Even though it's a toxic environment, your boss is an idiot, his supervisor is even worse, and whoever's running the company is a red hot mess, but you still like placate, try to people please, and try to smooth things over and be the peacekeeper to keep things going, right? That's a fawn reaction. That's some examples of a fawn reaction, right? There are just like about 100 or so symptoms of anxiety, and some of you've seen them. And let me also say that for that fight, the reaction when it is fight, it is not always a physical fight. It is argumentative. Folks will also be argumentative, and that's important to note because we're going to talk about the angry Black woman. Everybody likes to call the angry Black woman, but yes, the fight response is not always a physical fight. It is an argumentative stance. It's an attitude, a way of being. That is also an anxiety response, how you can respond to anxiety. So there are many, 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 many symptoms of anxiety, from racing heart to chest pains, to fainting, tunnel vision. And that's what makes it so important for you to manage anxiety and also manage stress, because I've talked about it before. When you go into survival mode, and that's what you do, you're in anxiety mode, your body's worried about surviving. It's not worried about making the best decisions for your career. It's not worried about what's the best decision for your family, any of that stuff. You get tunnel vision and you cannot make the best decisions. You're pretty much reduced to binary choices. Yes, no, up, down, right, left, black, white, binary choices. And we know when it comes to career and being leaders, we can't make it on making binary choices. That's just not going to get you where you want to go. You cannot climb the corporate ladder and be as effective as you need to be when you're only making those binary choices. But it's because anxiety causes tunnel vision. You go here, you stop, you can't see the outside stuff, all the things that are important. You don't see those, right? And again, that's the reason why it's so important to manage your stress and manage your anxiety. Okay. There's heart palpitations. I've seen people go to the hospital for heart palpitations only to be told it's not a heart attack. You have anxiety. Really great doctors can pick up after a couple of times. You're like, you need to see someone for anxiety because you have none of the markers of having heart problems. But there's so many symptoms of anxiety. Send me, put lists in the comments if you want me to send the list, because it's like I will be reading over 100 symptoms of anxiety, right? And so now let's talk about it. I've mentioned it before, and I said it was important to manage stress. It's important to manage anger, right? I'm sorry, to manage your anxiety, because we have this thing called the angry Black woman. And a lot of us get accused of being the angry Black woman. If we speak up for ourselves, we're the angry Black woman. If we express, dislike about something, I don't like how this is, we're considered the angry Black woman. If we start talking really fast and get, really into it, we're angry, right? And it's as if there's no middle ground. I say no middle ground. Some of us are just very passionate. I do. Anybody out there have heard people say, you need to calm down. Oh my God, calm down. And you're like, I'm passionate about what I like and about my feelings or about the situation. Don't tell me to calm down. These are my feelings. I'll manage them just fine. Thank you very much. But we often get called the angry Black woman, right? So, we talk about it. Anxiety is a fear of something that hasn't happened yet. And and it can wreak havoc in your life, speaking as someone who has anxiety, right? But did you know that Black women experience depression differently and anxiety differently? They experience it as frustration, irritation, agitation, and anger. So we experience anxiety different, and we experience stress different than other folks. And so, it comes off as an angry Black woman. And sure enough, there are some people out there who are angry. And sometimes we have a right to be. I do anxiety management coaching. And the title of the program is What's Good About Anger? And the whole point is to say anger is not bad. It's the response to the anger, right? And a lot of folks like to say, Jesus went in and he threw all the money tables to the side. So, there's some anger that is justified. We talk about social justice. There is anger that is justified, right? But Black women get slapped with the label of, being passionate, being upset, being irritated. They're all angry. Well, we're not all angry. Some are, some are not. Some of them are responding to their environment. They're responding to being the only person of color in their environment. They're responding to microaggressions. And sometimes we're like, I don't want to be the angry Black woman, so I'm just going to keep my mouth closed and I'm going to sit here and take it. And they do. And then people's like, oh, she's just a good one. Look, we got a good one, y'all. We got a good one. And then someone someday says something stupid. And it's like, all that suppression you've been doing to the anger, it comes out. And all of a sudden you go from being the good Black woman in the office to the angry Black woman. But are you really angry? Or are you responding to events and situations in your environment? Responding can be stress, and sometimes it does cause cause anxiety, because you are the only person in the environment. Then you become worried because people say little quote unquote backhanded comments. Oh, you speak well for someone like you. That's not a comment. And if you're still telling Black women that, please stop. That's not a comment. But we'll sometimes accept those microaggressions, try to push them down. Then we become anxious about what's the next stupid thing somebody's going to say to me. Anxiety, right? And so it hasn't happened yet, but you probably know it's coming. Or you're going to a meeting and you can see, and for those of you all, when the only Black woman comes into a meeting, this is true for Black men too, or if there's an only Hispanic woman or Hispanic man, right? When you all communicate with your eyes and you look at each other when we walk in the room, we see that. No, really, we do. We see it. And that just ticks up. It has the ability to tick up your stress or to tick up your anxiety. And if you have been the only one in anxiety, the only woman of color, and you're experiencing anxiety, you can go on to get social anxiety, afraid to speak up in that meeting because you see the communication between the eyes, and they look at you, and there's some of the eye rolls and like, did she? And it's only in response to when you say something. And so some of you do develop social anxiety from being isolated so long as the only woman of color, the only Black woman there, or the only person of color, right? And so at the end of the day, all of this is possible, but it's so important for you to manage it before it goes on to become chronic stress. And it goes on to build up so much anxiety that it starts to affect your life. You start to live a less than life because you're drawing into a shell because you're so anxious. And part of social anxiety, it makes you do that. You don't go to parties. You don't go to outings. You don't speak with folks. You just kind of isolate in your office and don't say anything because you're so anxious. right? And so that's the result. So yes, you can have stress and you can have anxiety. Chronic stress can actually go on to cause anxiety. So anxiety and stress are so closely related and the symptoms overlap. Okay. And so really, if you're at the point where, you know, you're dreading going into work, anxiety, you're get stressed about if it's your time to give that briefing, and you give it every month, right? But if it's your time to get it, you start having headaches and you're starting to feel nauseous. It's time to do something about it rather than letting it go on. But the good news is you can do something about it. It is very treatable, it's very resolvable, right? You see me doing this now. Again, I have social anxiety, and I said we don't cure anxiety. Anxiety is your body's response to help you survive. So we don't cure anxiety, but we can definitely manage. And so, yes, I'm doing this, but there's some other ways that I go, other things that I do. I don't do. I talked about. You have social anxiety when you will spend money on a ticket, and when the event comes, you dread that you ever said I was going to go, and then if it's low cost enough in money, you won't even go. Yes, you may have social anxiety. Also happens with introverts, of the which I'm both. So the intersectionality of all those with racism and gender can really make things challenging, but it is easily resolved, right? And so if you are there and you're hearing this, right? Here are some steps. Here are some things that you can do to be sure you're taking care of your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, and your physical health. Number one, please get a support system with the right people in the system. Okay. You got to have the right support around you. People who are disparaging, people who are nice and nasty, frenemies, not so much in your support group. You need a group of folks who are there to support you, that you can lean on, who encourage you. Yeah, they give you the truth as well. They motivate, they inspire you, but you don't need frenemies in that circle and people who are nasty. They say something nice, but it's nasty intent behind it. That stuff just ticks your anger. I mean, it ticks your anxiety up and it ticks your stress up, right? Also, get in tune with your spirituality. I mentioned spiritual health. It's very important to the healthy person, right? Very important. And whatever your religion is, get in tune. Some folks, it's in nature. Some folks, because of COVID, we kind of got a little away from going into church or going into services, depending on whether you're going into, a mosque or, a temple, wherever you go, but get in contact with whatever your spiritual side is, right? It does help to relieve stress, and it also helps to relieve anxiety. Okay. Do every so often, we talked about there's 7 kinds of rest, and I'll link to it in the comments. There are 7 types of rest, one of which is resting from social media, right? As far back as in 2009, social media was mentioned in about 69% of divorces. So we know too much social media isn't good. It's also linked to depression as well. So do take those social media breaks every so often, whatever is right for you. Is it 30 minutes a day? Is it one day a week? Whatever is right for you, do that, right? I can't stress enough exercising to what's healthy for you. Contact your doctor if you haven't done it in a while. But yes, exercising increases endorphins, whether it's bowling, golfing, swimming, walking, biking, kickboxing. Kickboxing is really good because you can put a target up there who, no. But I don't do that at all, right? Also have a nice groovy playlist, right? Yes, I said groovy. A laid back, easy playlist, just a list of songs, right? When you listen to the upbeat, the tempo stuff that has this, your heart rate can pick up that beat and it can run with that beat. So when I say laid back, easy to listen, feel good, relaxing, groovy, something that can calm you down. Music does a really good job of that. If there's a period in your life where you really love the music, like, some 70s, 75s rock things, just reminds me of being a happy, carefree kid. Find that genre of music and listen to it. It really does help. Okay. Be sure I talked about rest. Like I said, I'll link to that in the comments because there are 7 different types of rest that you need. And in addition to the rest, you need to get sleep. Okay. Lack of sleep can actually cause stress and it can cause anxiety. Also, anxiety can cause lack of sleep, and so can chronic stress. It can cause lack of sleep. So they're all intertwined. The thing to do is get what is healthy for you. I know there are those few people out there. It's just, hey, Michelle. Michelle said, I hear you, Dr. Carter. Thanks for joining in, Michelle. So there are some folks who out there, 5 hours is just your normal all your entire life from a kid up to now. But for most of us, we're going to need at least 6, anywhere from 6 to 10. I think it's 7 to 10. Get what is healthy for you. That's just the best way to put it. Okay. Because lack of sleep is also long-term lack of sleep is also related to dementia. When I heard that, I had to get my sleep stuff ready. I had to get my sleep stuff right because I was a 3 or 4 hour night person. I had to get myself, it was a whole redo of life really when I heard that, but it can, and it causes other chronic issues as well. So be sure to get rest and sleep because there are 2 different things that are not the same. Eat what is healthy for you, right? It just says it. That says it all. What is healthy for you? Don't be afraid to talk to a nutrition, to go in and get that professional help if you really do need to, because some people don't eat and they drop weight when they're stressed. That's not healthy, right? Some people like me, when I get stressed, I tend to eat everything carb that I can find. That's not healthy either, but a registered dietitian can really help you with that, right? Do create space in your life, slow down, right? Science, create space to just be. Not a list of things to get done, not a whole lot. Just create that space. Start off small, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever time period, if it's every other day, once a week, whatever, start small. But have a space that you create where you just are there, you go and you just be, right? If your body says sleep, then take a nap. If it says, no, I think we're going to read something, then read. What you'll find once you institute these moments of space where you just be, you will become way more creative. Things will start to pop up to you. It's easier to make decisions, but we get crammed full of life, this, that, this thing, kids and school and basketball and soccer and practice and intramural sports. And we're doing sports ourselves and we're trying to be on every committee and we get full. So create that time to slow down and just create space. Space just to be that, whoever you are, that authentic you, and see what comes up. You'll be surprised, right? Mine, I used to go to sleep because, again, I was only getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. But as I got better, start to reading books, it's whatever comes up for you. Just create your space and flow from there, right? And then, very important, set boundaries, right? And along with setting boundaries means saying no and let that be the whole sentence. No. Okay. And I know some of us, I'm a recovering people pleaser, so this is tough. Learn to say, let me get back with an answer. Let me get back to you with an answer. People know that if they push you in the moment, you're going to give them an answer, and it's probably going to be what they want to hear. So if you can't say no, like with period at the end, then say, let me get back to you. Okay. I wrote that down. Let me get back to you in 30 minutes. If you know you need an hour, then say, let me get back to you in an hour. If you're the person who needs 3 hours, whatever your time is, give yourself more time, right? And don't answer then. Because once you leave that situation, once you leave that person, you are more apt to say no. Which is why they don't want you to leave. They want you to make a decision right there because they know it's probably going to come out that you'll do it, especially if you're used to being a people pleaser. But do set those boundaries and say no. It's very healthy for you, and you're not taking on so many projects, right? And then lastly, reach out and get help if you need it. It's okay. I know we talk about the strong Black woman. Well, the strong Black woman is a myth, and she's dying because of stress and anxiety, and it's needless to do so. Reach out for help. Get help. Okay. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't make you any less strong. It doesn't make you any less vulnerable. So, yes, reach out and get help. Okay. So, if you made it this far, congratulations. Yes, yes, yes. Right. Now, are you ready to take control of the stress and anxiety? Is it that time for you? You're like, yeah, I had enough. It's time to do with this. If this message really resonates with you, you don't have to wait another moment. Go ahead and take that first step towards living a more balanced and peaceful life. Simply send me a DM with the word stress and anxiety. Stress or anxiety and stress, whichever one it is, right? And we'll schedule a time to discuss how stress and anxiety coaching can really transform your life for the better, right? You can journey to be a happier you, a healthier you, and just more resilient. And it can start now. So let's definitely conquer stress and anxiety together. Okay. So I do appreciate you being here. If you found this helpful, give me a thumbs up, right? And just let me know in the comments. Love the feedback. And so, again, I'm doing a series this month on unlocking the secrets to career success. Be back here next week when I talk about how Black and Latina women can successfully find safe working spaces. Okay, so you don't want to miss that one. And I am signing off saying thank you for hopping on. Appreciate you for being here, and have a good evening, good night, good morning, or good afternoon.